Om Shanti, everyone. Welcome again to the next session on inner storms. And on the last day of this series, would like to finish with a little bit more detail on how does a caterpillar become a butterfly. So as we know that the caterpillar feeds on leaves and it keeps feeding until it cannot eat anymore. And then it goes into a pupa where it dissolves itself completely. It has to die. And then when it's completely turned into a soup in that pupa, that is when the butterfly is emerged out of that pupa. It is pretty much the metamorphosis of the human soul from being with caterpillar mindset. It feeds as a caterpillar on knowledge, and it keeps taking in knowledge. Then it goes into this stage of pupa where the caterpillar has to let go of all the egos. The soul has to let go of all the egos. And then when all the egos are dissolved, naturally there is a butterfly, the angel, which is the original nature of each and every soul, to be a butterfly. I will take a recap from yesterday and then we'll do a meditation. So, as we see here, the map of the mind, the famous map, very important, as was mentioned before, to keep a picture of it. It's very useful because this is the mind of the angel, of the butterfly, which has got the perfection of God-like perfection. And this is the mind of the king soul. Now, there is also what has happened over time through journey, that this egoic mind, these small false identities, which are not small anymore, these ego identities have settled on top of this mind like the layers of dust. So the godlike perfection is hiding right now, and all these false identities have settled on it. But the good news is that when God himself comes, he tells us to detach from these identities immediately. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is our aim not to become perfect today, but our aim is to do that homework to be able to come to this mindset. So we will be going a little bit deeper into that as to how we do that, but wanted to give a very small example so that there's a deeper understanding how mind works. So let's say somebody today asked, what if I have a car accident and somebody bangs into my car? Then how does this process work in this practical day-to-day life? And it's very easy, because if the identity is with Susan, or if the identity is with Rini, then the sanskaras of Susan, that is the old story, the old belief systems, the old identities, they will come into action and try to resolve the issue with the other driver. So there's a driver ego that will resolve the issue with the other driver's ego. That is what is happening when the soul is not remembering its truth and is under the false identity eclipse. That is what is happening. But now, let's say the soul behind Susan is awake. In that moment, when the accident happens, then the soul will still take care of the scene, but from God's perspective, from his own perfection perspective, knowing that drama is very tiny, small, insignificant. He will remember his blissful nature, his nature of unrestricted love. So the priority is not to just get the car fixed no matter what. Priority is to hold on to one's truth of peace and bliss. So no fluctuation seen in the drama happened. It needs to be taken care of, but not at the expense of the peace of the mind. And that peaceful mind, those peaceful sanskaras of the soul, will take care of the scene in this little tiny insignificant drama. And it's a very different way of living when one is living in this mindset of an angel, still living in this world, but very much with the mindset of an angel. The sanskaras of an angel will come into action rather than the sanskaras of Susan or Rini in that case. So it's important fact to know that this map of the mind, where are we, the angel today in this mind? If we try to take care of the ego, the angel is very weak here. But we have to shift to this identity. And it is matter of seconds. And it may not last very long, but the more practice is done, the longer it will stay with you. And then naturally these sanskaras will start to come into play here. Not any identity of Susan as a mother. Mother may be sick of Susan, but the soul behind Susan knows that the soul behind this daughter identity, the daughter identity is just an ego. The soul knows that the soul behind this mother is immortal, is beyond harm. Yes, the body belongs to nature. It has to go back to nature. But there will be no grief, no sorrow, but absolute freedom, knowing that the soul is always safe. The response changes completely, even at the level of drama, when the soul comes with the sanskaras of the angelic mindset. Wanted to really point that out to make it very clear. So let's take a moment. And in this moment, step out of the ego identity, where drama is big. This little tiny box where drama is big. Every scene becomes big. Everything becomes important. Or the angelic identity. Why is it that we need to know God? Why do we need to know? And what does it mean to know God? Is it enough to know God's picture? Is it enough to know God's qualities? Is it enough to memorize this picture as a visual? Can one know God just by keeping the image in the mind? We really need to grasp the mind of God. The soul needs to see what God sees. The mind, the intellect, and the sanskaras of the soul has to be aligned with God's mind, God's intellect, and God's sanskaras. And that is where magic happens. The soul begins to awaken. But one has to start with the awakened state. Because this ego mind doesn't want to connect with God. Even if he tries to, he won't be able to take full benefit. Some benefit may be there, but not full benefit that the mind like this is capable of. So mind, intellect, and sanskaras. And why is it that we need to know God? Because the soul has forgotten itself. And so the supreme parent, teacher, He himself comes and he wants the soul to awaken to his truth, that the souls are just like God. Awaken to your reality, my children. That is what he says. And see who you are. You are the mirror image of who I am. That is what God says. The greatest philanthropist, the wisest of all, holiest of the holy, in an extraordinary way. He's the embodiment of all goodness, and he makes others just like him. In Hindi, the word is Roop and Basant. Someone who is beautiful and make others beautiful just like him. And all he's saying is, child, detach from this mind. This is not you anymore. Come on this side. You are the angel. And if sitting here, the angel is watching this mind, and this ego screams, this ego shouts, the angel observes from here and sees that tiny ego from this perspective, from God's perspective, completely detached from this ego shouting in the mind. Just being of bliss, like God. The game is in the truth, and the truth is not at a gross level. Truth cannot be seen, and it is invisible. This game is going on in the mind. All the souls are truly invisible. And for God, this reality is so clear and so obvious. And so he finds it. And his heart is filled with mercy. And his mercy is that he wakes up his children's stars, his sparkling eternal lamps. His incognito deities to their reality. That is his mercy. His knowledge is his mercy. He doesn't come and interfere in karma, but he gives the knowledge to the soul, and his unconditional love becomes power for the soul to detach. And from that detachment, using one's original sanskaras is very easy. So to understand the subtlety of God, it takes, just like it takes another mathematician to recognize a great mathematician, and a musician to recognize another great musician. Like, for example, if somebody were to ask Rini to identify good music, it would be like putting pearls before a monkey, because would not know what good music is. Only a good musician would know who the good musician is. So to know God, one needs to start from this position of being like God. The soul has to start in this position, and that is why what is Baba, what is Supreme Father, we call him Baba. What is he doing? He's saying, come and see yourself through my eyes. See who you are. Ego personality is incapable of grasping divine identity. So that's okay. In the beginning, when we come, we don't have much choice. So we use this ego mind, and that is fine. And it does help. It helps shrink these egos to a certain extent. And then what happens, the next step is that we immediately come to this level where, and it's not too long. Some people even start here. So it's up to each one. We can choose where we want to start. And over here, it is this mindset that the soul starts with. It is this perfect mindset. And that is why we take 1 minute every hour to be able to come to this space of perfect mind, like God's mind, seeing things the way God sees. And what does He see? We have to step out of this physical identity for that. So ego ordinarily actually does not have the feeling of being worthy of God's love. That is very deep in all human souls today. And that is why one needs to sidestep, because ego does not even like to think that I'm a being like God. And in fact, he thinks it's kind of some arrogance in there. That's what ego thinks, because it's the death of ego. If ego cannot ever admit it is like God. That is ego-mindedness. That is the nature of ego. It doesn't want to die. And so awakening the angel, when God comes, he says it happens in a second. You just come back to this mind, detach from this mind. And this mind will fight back, but you just watch it and you acknowledge your existence as I am telling you. That's what God says. So God is truth. That is why it's so important to know God's qualities also. He is in many cultures named as zero. In Sanskrit, it's called Shambhu, which meaning zero. And one interpretation of Shiva is Shiva is also called zero. And then alpha, beginning point, zero in ignorance, vices, complaints, sorrows, and egos. He is zero in ignorance, zero in vices, zero in complaints, zero in sorrows, completely innocent of vices, completely innocent of desires. He's through and through benevolent. This is the nature of God. So what should be the nature of the soul? These are the sanskaras of God. What are the sanskaras of the soul? These are the same sanskaras that the soul has. And that is why God has to come and give his introduction, so that the soul can wake up to its original sanskaras. And because he has zero bondages, it allows him to experience infinity. Where there are zero desires and zero vices, only that can be the ocean. Only zero can be the ocean, because it allows him to experience bliss, because he's free from any bondages, any ignorance, zero in insecurity. And that is why he can be an ocean of pure, clean, unrestricted, continuously flowing love. So proof of being with God is that his personality starts influencing the soul. In his company, the soul is experiencing angelic self, experiencing freedom from Ravan personality. Complete freedom from Ravan's personality, even if it's just for a few moments. Angel can come back to life for a few moments. Won't happen all day long to begin with. In fact, till the end, we are working on awakening. The soul is working on awakening its true self. And this is the journey, as well as the method to get there. Method is the same as the destination. And so the method is to be an angel, and destination is to be an angel. So we are being an angel, practicing angels in training. So the angel is becoming awake. This is the angelic star. Becoming awake in God's company, to his greatness by seeing God, by being with God. So he's coming out of suffocation. And the mind like God sees everyone with that same vision. So in connection with Supreme, there is deep sense of equality even at the level of drama. The soul behind this person will feel the same respect for all souls, irrespective of their part. Nobody is better or worse. Nobody is higher or lower, because the soul behind this person is experiencing its highest consciousness. Even if it's just for a few moments, it's very powerful. A mind that is filled with great respect for each and every soul is a mind that is loved by God. So it's like junior surgeon takes the company of the greatest surgeon and learning from him, copying him, taking benefit of his company. As we said, we are made in the images of God, the souls. We means the souls, not Susan or Rini. Just need to let go of this false identity. Let go means, it doesn't mean that one will now stop feeling the body. Body is seen and felt, but awareness. In the awareness, the angelic self, in the awareness, the angelic qualities are emerged. And those qualities, the angelic nature like God, God's perspective, the feelings from home, the feelings of the family of invisible stars, that is very awake and aware here. So Rini's family is not the family of the soul. The soul's family is all the souls behind all those bodies. And when that vision is kept, there's a vision of brotherhood. There's a vision of equal love for all. And others will feel that. Even those souls behind those masks will feel that. So it is that brotherhood feeling that God is inculcating in all the souls, so that there is no discrepancy in love that the soul feels towards other souls. And he says that he has come here to protect the soul. He has come here to protect the soul and not change the drama, but change the consciousness. So from body consciousness to soul consciousness. And he teaches elevated karma. And what is the most elevated karma? Is to be awake as an angel. One can do many good actions, but if it is done in the sleepy state, it is still negative karma, because it is done in body consciousness. And so the soul that is awake, even when it breathes, it's doing service. The soul that is awake, even as it speaks or thinks, it is doing service. He this being of light that the real self is. He has no familiarity down below with this Rini character. He knows this is just one of many births that this, or many bodies, or many shoes, or many clothings that this being, that the real self is, has worn. His real identity is just attached with God and God's identity as being his star child. And all the souls are his star children. All the souls are brothers. This is the vision that is carried. And that is why the proof of experience is that it will free the soul from sorrow. It will free the soul from confusion that I am my body or role or part. But it will bring the soul back to this identity of being like God, whose home is God's home, whose family is God's family of stars, sparkling stars. And that's how the age of truth is established. Because the internal factor, the internal awareness will invite the external factors. And nature wants to serve us with the best relationships, the best everything in the physical world. And that is in our hands, in the hands of this hour, the soul. So let's take a moment. And in this moment, find the self in the company of the Supreme, the true self, and the mind, the intellect of the true self are aligned with the mind and the intellect of the Supreme. One may see the ego identities, but just observe them. Hold God's perspective as the perspective of the self. He's seeing everything from eternity, perspective of eternity and immortality. And home. This is yoga. Linking the mind with God's mind. Offering the mind to God. The word that is used is man, mana, bhava. Offer the mind to God. Yes, the mind may have false identities. Offer it to God. He is the supreme surgeon. But at the same time, accept what he's seeing. One needs the courage to overcome this ego, to accept one's greatness. He even says to us in our everyday Murli readings, say to yourself, Vare me. Ego does not like to say that. He thinks it's arrogant. But the being who's like God, he knows when he says Vare me, then God's task becomes his task of uplifting those who insult him, or rather his part. God's qualities of humility, God's qualities of bringing upliftment and benefit is the task of this invisible incarnate. This is what it means to be like God. Egos are not nurtured and nourished, but the angel is nourished. To identify with God's vision requires courage. And to detach from old stories and old identities requires courage. And so God's home is angels' home. God's family is angels' family. God's perspective is angels' perspective. Om Shanti. Wanted to just point out one thing before we end the session. If you could give us reviews on this series in the comment section, that would be great. And hope that you keep up this practice and meet you all again soon. Thank you.